Marcus Hayes, a tall black man in his early 40s, had the kind of presence that filled a room before he even spoke. His crisp navy uniform carried the weight of years of discipline. His hat tucked neatly under his arm as he walked through JFK's busy terminal. Passengers glanced his way, some nodding politely, others looking surprised. Because, even in 2025, a black pilot was still a rare sight. Marcus had learned to ignore the stares. He had earned every stripe on his sleeve with sweat, sacrifice, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. Raised in a working-class neighborhood where opportunities were scarce, he had fought tooth and nail to reach the cockpit of a Boeing 787. To him, flying was more than a job. It was freedom. Proof that no chain of prejudice could keep him grounded forever. On the other end of the terminal, Rebecca Mills touched up her lipstick with the precision of someone who thought appearances mattered more than heart. At 26, blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and fresh out of training, she had been dreaming of this job as her ticket to a glamorous life. But under the surface, her upbringing carried old prejudices. Her father often muttered at the dinner table that some jobs weren't meant for certain people. Those words had carved themselves into her mind, and now, staring at Marcus Hayes, she felt those whispers become judgment. To her, authority didn't look like him. It looked like her idea of professional. Someone white, someone she could admire without questioning her place in the hierarchy. Gate 27 was buzzing with energy. Crew members chatted lightly, passengers shuffled nearby, and the smell of airport coffee lingered in the air. Marcus greeted the team with a warm smile, his deep voice calm but commanding. "All right, folks, let's run through the safety briefing." His words were clipped, professional, but carried warmth that instantly reassured half the crew. But then there was Rebecca, arms folded, lips curled in a faint smirk. When Marcus began assigning positions for takeoff, Rebecca stepped forward, her tone laced with fake politeness. "Excuse me, shouldn't the senior attendant lead this? Passengers need confidence and—" Her voice trailed, eyes flicking deliberately over Marcus's skin color. "Well, appearances matter." The group froze. A couple of junior attendants glanced at each other, shocked but afraid to speak up. Marcus felt the sting, but years of discipline taught him to keep his face unreadable. Still, his chest tightened. He had dealt with prejudice his whole career, but it never stopped hurting. Rebecca's voice sharpened, louder now, making sure nearby passengers could hear. "Look, I'm just saying, people want to feel safe. And I don't know if a situation like this gives them that." Her words sliced the air. One of the attendants dropped their gaze to the floor, embarrassed. A passenger waiting nearby raised their brows, pulling out a phone to record. Marcus inhaled slowly, steadying his breath. "The sky doesn't check color before it lets you fly," he said evenly, his voice like steel under silk. "You either have the hours logged, or you don't." Rebecca rolled her eyes, scoffing. To her, his calm sounded like weakness, but Rebecca wasn't done. She leaned against the counter, her voice rising with bold arrogance. "I'm just being honest. You think first-class passengers are going to trust him behind the controls? People pay thousands of dollars for comfort, not for diversity training in the cockpit." The audacity stunned even the gate agent. One of the older flight attendants cleared her throat, whispering, "Rebecca, that's enough." But Rebecca smirked, shrugging. "No, I think people should know," she continued, gesturing toward Marcus. It's not like this is some charity flight, right? Or is it? Phones were out now. 2 passengers openly recorded, whispers spreading through the gate. Marcus stood silent for a moment, jaw clenched, eyes steady. Every fiber in him wanted to call her out, to remind her that his record was spotless, that he had flown through storms that would have rattled lesser men. But years of swallowing anger had taught him patience. Rebecca, mistaking his silence for weakness, pushed harder. See? Not even a word. That's what I thought. The silence around them was suffocating. The humiliation was public, deliberate, cruel. What Rebecca didn't know, what none of them knew, was that today's flight wasn't just another trip across the Atlantic. In seat 1A of first class sat Evelyn Carter, a black woman with sharp eyes and a calm presence, the billionaire owner of the airline. She had boarded quietly, dressed simply, blending in as just another wealthy traveler. She wanted to observe her company from the ground up, to see how her staff treated each other when no one was watching. And now, Evelyn had seen everything. Once the passengers boarded, the atmosphere in the cabin was heavy. Some avoided Marcus's gaze, unsure how to process what they had witnessed at the gate. Others whispered behind raised hands, clearly on Rebecca's side. Marcus walked the aisle with quiet dignity, greeting passengers with a nod. Each step felt like a test of his composure. He had been through storms at 35,000 feet. But this storm, prejudice wrapped in arrogance, was heavier. Rebecca, meanwhile, strutted through the cabin with forced confidence, her smile plastered on like a mask. But behind it was a quiet glee. She thought she had made her point, put Marcus in his place. Only Evelyn Carter, tucked into seat 1A, saw everything clearly. Her sharp eyes followed every move, noting not just Marcus's restraint, but also Rebecca's smugness. Evelyn said nothing, not yet. The cockpit smelled of leather and polished metal, the hum of electronics filling the air. Marcus adjusted his headset, his hands steady on the controls. His co-pilot, a younger man named David, glanced at him nervously. "Everything good, Captain?" Marcus forced a small smile. "Everything's fine." But deep down, his chest burned. Every insult, every doubt Rebecca had thrown at him echoed in his mind. Not because her words carried truth, but because he had heard them all before. From teachers who told him flying wasn't for kids like him. From recruiters who doubted his intelligence. From strangers who saw his skin before his wings. Still, when the engines roared to life and the plane lifted into the night sky, Marcus felt a rush of clarity. The sky was his refuge, his reminder that prejudice couldn't touch the clouds. Hours into the flight, turbulence rattled the plane. Passengers gasped, cups spilled, and Rebecca nearly lost her footing as the cabin shook. Panic spread quickly. Rebecca's voice trembled as she grabbed the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, but please remain seated." But fear cracked through her professional mask. She looked toward the cockpit door, her arrogance melting into panic. Marcus's calm voice soon filled the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We've hit a pocket of rough air, but everything is under control. Please fasten your seatbelts. We'll be through this shortly." His tone, steady, deep, unwavering, cut through the chaos like a lifeline. Passengers exhaled in relief. Fear melted into trust. Rebecca froze, realizing the irony. The man she had mocked, humiliated, and dismissed was the very one keeping her safe. When the turbulence passed, A ripple of applause spread through the cabin. Some passengers even whispered apologies to each other for doubting Marcus earlier. But Evelyn Carter, the hidden owner, knew it was time. She rose gracefully from her seat in first class, her designer jacket draped neatly over her shoulders. Walking down the aisle, heads turned, her quiet authority commanded attention. She stopped near the galley, her voice calm but firm. "Rebecca Mills, we need to talk." Rebecca blinked, caught off guard. "Ma'am? Who are you?" Evelyn reached into her purse and pulled out a sleek ID card, flashing the airline's crest with her name. Evelyn Carter, owner and CEO. The color drained from Rebecca's face. The other attendants gasped. Passengers leaned in, phones ready. Evelyn's eyes burned into Rebecca's. "I watched everything at the gate. Every word, every insult you threw. And let me make something crystal clear." She turned, her gaze softening as it fell on Marcus. "This man doesn't just carry my planes into the sky. He carries the reputation of my company, my vision, and my trust. And you embarrassed us. You embarrassed me." Rebecca's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her arrogance collapsed into shame. The cabin was silent. Every passenger, every crew member had their eyes locked on Evelyn Carter and Rebecca Mills. Rebecca's confidence, the smirk, the superiority, evaporated. Her voice shook as she tried to regain control. "Mrs. Carter, I didn't mean anything by it. I was only doing my job. He was late, and I thought—" Evelyn's sharp hand cut the air like a blade. "You thought wrong. And let's not pretend this was about protocol. I've run airlines long enough to know the difference between enforcing rules and enforcing prejudice. What you did wasn't professionalism. It was racism, plain and simple." The word racism hit like thunder. A few passengers clapped quietly, others nodded in agreement. Phones were out, recording every second. Rebecca's knees weakened. She reached for the galley counter to steady herself, her face burning red. Meanwhile, Marcus stayed seated in the jump seat near the cockpit door, his hands folded in his lap. He hadn't spoken since Evelyn revealed her identity. He didn't need to. His very presence was louder than Rebecca's excuses. Evelyn turned toward him, her voice softening. "Marcus, I watched you handle that turbulence. Calm, professional. You gave people confidence when they needed it most. That's the kind of leadership I want representing my company." Marcus lifted his eyes, his jaw tight with controlled emotion. A lifetime of insults and doubts rushed through his memory, but so did his mother's words. "Don't let hate make you bitter. Let it make you better." He simply nodded and said quietly, "Thank you, ma'am." The passengers broke into applause, louder this time, swelling until it filled the cabin. Some even stood, clapping for him. Evelyn raised her hand to silence the applause, her voice cut through with power. "As of this moment, Rebecca Mills, you are relieved of duty. You will not work another flight for Carter Airlines. Not today, not ever. Security will escort you off upon landing." Gasps rippled through the cabin. Rebecca's face drained of all color, her hands shaking as she tried to protest. "Please, Mrs. Carter, I've given 10 years of my life to this airline. It was just one mistake." "One mistake?" Evelyn's tone was razor sharp. "You didn't just insult a man. You insulted my pilot, my employee, my partner, in keeping hundreds of lives safe, and worse, you insulted him for the color of his skin, something he wears with pride, something you tried to weaponize." The shame was unbearable. Rebecca sank into an empty seat, covering her face with her hands, sobbing quietly. The passengers didn't pity her. They looked at her the way people look at someone who'd finally been unmasked. When the plane touched down hours later, anticipation buzzed through the cabin. The passengers whispered about what they had witnessed, many already uploading clips to social media. Rebecca was escorted off first, her head bowed low, sunglasses hiding her tears. Reporters were already waiting at the terminal. Then came Marcus, walking tall in his crisp uniform. But this time, when he stepped into the terminal, it wasn't silence or suspicion that greeted him. It was cheers. Passengers clapped and patted him on the back. Strangers shouted, "We're proud of you, Captain." For the first time in his career, Marcus didn't just feel like a pilot. He felt like a symbol, proof that dignity and patience could outshine hate. Later, in Evelyn Carter's private office, Marcus stood across from her, unsure of what was coming next. Evelyn leaned forward, her tone both firm and warm. "Marcus, I want to do more than thank you. I want to invest in you. I've seen your record, your experience, your dedication. From today forward, you're not just one of my captains. You're promoted to head of pilot training." Marcus's eyes widened. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Evelyn smiled, "and prove me right. Train the next generation of pilots to fly with the same strength, dignity, and heart that you've shown. Let your story teach them what arrogance can never understand." Marcus swallowed hard, emotion swelling in his chest. "Yes, ma'am." With honor. News spread fast. Within hours, headlines covered the story. Racist flight attendant fired by airline owner after humiliating black pilot. Captain Marcus Jackson praised for dignity under fire. Social media buzzed with praise. People wrote messages like, "That pilot handled it with more grace than I ever could." About time someone called this behavior out publicly. Marcus is the kind of man we need flying planes and leading people. Rebecca vanished into obscurity, her career in ruins, her arrogance, her downfall. But Marcus? His name became synonymous with respect. Parents showed their children the videos, saying, "See? That's what strength looks like." Prejudice tried to clip Marcus's wings, but instead it only proved how high he could soar. Rebecca thought she could strip him of dignity. But dignity isn't something you can take. It's something you carry. And Marcus carried his with the weight of generations before him. In the end, justice didn't just fire a racist attendant. It reminded the world that character, not color, defines a person's worth. And for Marcus, the sky never looked wider, brighter, or freer.